This is Kirsten Tynan with the Fully Informed Jury Association, and I am here at the pre-presentation of Keith McHenry, founder of Food Not Bombs and author of what I'm referring to as the other Anarchist Cookbook.
Good point. Yeah, it's been interesting clarifying that.
This one, correct me if I'm wrong, this one has actual food recipes.
This has vegan recipes for both 100 people and for families of 6. And also, oddly enough, which is not the case in the original Anarchist Cookbook, has information about the theories and philosophies of anarchism. And also, unlike the original Anarchist Cookbook, which features bombs and booby traps and poisoning people, this is written by William Powell, who is not an anarchist. This book is actually written by an anarchist.
Tell us a little bit about what Food Not Bombs is and what you guys do.
Well, Food Not Bombs is an all-volunteer movement that's in 1,000 cities of the world or more. And it's 35 years old. I'm one of the original 8 people that started it. And the 8 of us were anarchists. Our idea was, our philosophy was not really to promote a specific political idea by saying we are anarchists and do anarchism, but actually to be experiential. And so what we did was we collect food that can't be sold from grocery stores and bakeries and markets and farmers. We take that food, recover that food, and make it into vegan meals and vegetarian meals that we share on the streets. Mostly vegan meals, really. The vegetarian food is typically breads and pastries that we don't really know totally the details of what's in them. So they might have eggs and they might have dairy. And so we hand out that food on the streets with literature and information about social issues and also about where to get more food and other services as a person that might need those things.
Let me stop you for a second and let me ask you who you're hurting, because you guys keep getting arrested. You must be hurting someone, right? You sound all nice with this food stuff.
Well, this is what we have heard. It's interesting because the authorities are cagey about this. So the original arrest of Food Not Bombs, August 15th, 1988, the issue was we didn't have a permit for a picnic. It turned out no such permit existed. So after 94 arrests in 1988, the fall of 88, the mayor invented a permit to give us and stopped the arrests. And that was, so you could see that the government's problem was they wanted to determine whether to give permission to people to do stuff in their city. We felt you didn't need a permit. That still to this day, it's obvious you don't need a permit. We're not asking money for money. We're not telling somebody to do something. We just show up. It's a gift. It's free food. If you want it, you can eat it. Part of the issue of it being vegan, we want to promote nonviolence, which we support, but also it's less expensive. We're trying to promote all the attributes of vegan food, but also it means that we don't need so much refrigeration and steam tables and all that. It makes it so that people with no money can reproduce the Food Not Bombs idea and give it out. That's why we're being
arrested. What I'm not hearing here is a crime. Someone who has actually been physically harmed. Are you stealing the food from the grocery store? Are you like running after someone with your knife after you cook? I'm not hearing the crime part.
No, none of that is happening. And in fact, it's been very hard for governments to convict. So for instance, there was 1,000 arrests in San Francisco. And this is how they got it. So what they did in San Francisco and what they did in Orlando, Florida, and what they did in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and the 71 cities in the United States where it's illegal restrictions on feeding people. What they came up with was this idea that they would make a law, and then you would typically have to then, they either out and out ban the meals and tell you that you have to go inside, which then stops us from having our First Amendment rights of communicating these ideas to the public. What I've been seeing for the whole time is that the emotional impact of you seeing a lot of people needing food, meeting those people and really talking to them, and seeing that there's an abundance of food that could be given to these people, that these solutions do exist, and that the name Food Not Bombs is saying, look, our resources are going to bombs when we could be going to things like food, that combination of events is protected speech under the First Amendment. And some federal courts have actually ruled on that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what has happened in a couple of cases, one, Robert Norris Kahn, who was the only person out of 1,000 arrests in San Francisco to be convicted, was convicted of, oddly enough, because of felony conspiracy. He ended up really getting sentenced to like 30 days, and I think he ended up doing about 20 of those 30 days. But this was the issue there was, it was a violation of the court. There was a court order. He couldn't share food without a permit. Then, so there was an injunction. Then what happened was they deleted the permit process. And so then you could never get a permit. We applied for 136 times for a permit. Now I was going to be the key witness. So what had fortunately happened, and this is key to the whole conversation here about jury nullification, is that we videotaped every single time we were arrested sharing food, except for one time. And that one time was when Robert Norris Kahn came out and shared food before the video guy showed up. He actually gave out a few bagels. Therefore, there was no video evidence, because what would happen is that the district attorney knew that if they, even without the concept of jury nullification being publicly stated, although we were handing out information in the courthouse about that, the jury would see a video of somebody handing some food to a hungry person and go, how can that be a crime? So no matter how much the district attorney tried to explain that there was this court order and that they didn't have a permit and therefore they were sharing food without a permit, they knew in nearly 1,000 arrests that they would not be able to get a conviction. So the only one they went after and pursued was Robert. And the thing was that I was the witness who had applied 136 times and had been at the meetings with the mayor to create the original permit process, was then deleted. And I went to the meetings where it was, trying to keep it from being deleted. I spent years trying to get it put on as an agenda item on Parks and Recreation agenda and on the City Council agenda and so on. None of that happened. So, well, my bail got revoked in a frame-up that happened. So and by law, I should have been removed, transported from jail, even though I testify in jail clothing in Robert's case. They didn't do that. They wouldn't do that. And so there was no witness to describe what's going on. So I got convicted.
Yeah, this actually sounds a lot like a raw milk case that we actually saw jury nullification in. They were basically going after a raw milk farmer for distributing raw milk without a permit. The permit didn't exist.
Yeah, see, this is that in those 1,000 arrests, there was no permit, and it was not possible to get a permit.
Yep.
So that's that case. But and then roughly speaking, say the Orlando case, what happened there is they made a law that you could only share food twice a year in a city park, and you had to get a permit for those 2 times. And at that time, Orlando Food Not Bombs was sharing twice a week, and that you would have to move to, like, there's 43 parks, and you could only be, so there wouldn't be enough parks to be going around, and also many of the parks.
Everyone would have to move every time.
Yeah, you'd have to find out what park it was. Many of the parks were in areas where it would be kind of like the city itself would have probably flipped out. You could be in a really super rich neighborhood at a pond, and they'd have to walk past a mansion to get to the food, and people would be losing it there.
Right.
And so there's all kinds of issues surrounding that. So that's one of the more common things, is to have restrictions that we could never, that no one would ever want to meet. And I think the main thing that you see in all the efforts to stop the feeding of hungry in public is that they don't want political pressure to have to divert taxes and resources to helping the poor, and because they feel threatened that the people that have supported their campaigns to be elected officials and these would be outraged that they'd rather their money be spent on their projects, which might be, bigger assets.
Well, I see they're getting set up, and we have people coming in. So let me wrap this up by talking about the one case I'm familiar with of the whole food bombs plethora of cases that appears to have been an actual jury nullification victory. I think you and I were talking earlier. I believe it is Eric Montanez.
Yeah, Eric Montanez in Orlando, Florida, was violating what was called the large group feeding law from the perspective of the city. And he had a jury trial, and the jury, even though it was allegedly a violation of the large group feeding law, found Eric innocent. And some of the jurors actually noted that they didn't think it was a crime to feed the hungry in Orlando, Florida. And I don't know if there was overt discussion about the concept of jury nullification, but there was discussion that a jury could rule how they felt. And if did they feel that it was a criminal act to feed the hungry in public or not? So it was really jury nullification, but no one's used the term jury nullification, which is really probably more effective to. And it's great that the lawyers and his lawyer and other supporters of Food Not Bombs that testified got that message across to the jury, and the jury realized that they didn't need to convict.
So I want to let you go so that you can get started on time. Also, sign my books before you go.
Great, we will. Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much, Keith.